morning. Never mind.
Sorry.
One, two. Happy Monday morning, everybody. Welcome to episode number 49 of Merritt in the Morning. He is 30-year State Senator Jim Merritt. I am
Brad Klopfenstein.
I am Brad Klopfenstein.
He's president of the Greater Lawrence Chamber of Commerce, where we're podcasting from today.
We are at Cafe Audrey's at beautiful Fort Harrison. Jim, I'm also president of the Lawrence Stormwater Board.
Oh, my God.
Please give me the respect I'm due. So, our guest today, Nate Spangle from the Get In podcast. We will get to him in a minute. First, we want to thank our sponsors. Jim, the days are getting longer. Yeah. It's sunny. It's getting warmer. It's the time of year where a young man's fancy turns to ham.
Well, Easter's coming up.
Easter is coming up.
It doesn't mean that you don't go to honey baked ham on a non-holiday. Ham is a great thing any day.
They've got ham platters, meat trays. They've
ribs.
They've got ribs.
They've got chocolate
salads.
cake.
So if you're having a party, they will hook you up. Go there, have lunch, ask them.
Yeah, you can eat in the restaurant. And where are they?
So they are at 96th in Michigan, Greyhound Pass in Carmel. Jim, one other thing. They are celebrating 30 years of being in business.
Wow.
This month.
Wow.
So happy 30-year anniversary to the Honey Baked Ham
wonderful.
Company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Celebration.
If I may interject.
That is the voice of Josh.
Yes, the producer.
Yeah.
Through March 31st, you can take $10 off any catering purchase of $100 or more with promo code 729447. That is promo code 729447.
Fabulous.
Did you know that we had a booth guy?
we are.
Yeah, give me that. There we go. Talk about moving on up in the world. We got a booth guy now. So we might start having Josh do the introductions on this.
Yeah.
So I had no
We're
idea.
morphing.
I thought he was a mute. So also want to thank Stockyards Bank and Trust, locations at 71st and Binford, Carmel, downtown Indianapolis, Plainfield, Greenwood, which is at County Line, and Emerson. Jim, the 31st of this month, we're going to go down and cut the ribbon at their new Center Grove location.
Fabulous.
So that's
congratulations in advance to them.
Yes, it's on State Road 135 all the way down to damn near Trafalgar. So, and one other interesting thing, for those of you watching, you'll see the list of the Stockyards Bank Central Indiana locations on this. I thought Josh knew everything Indiana, but I gave him a stumper this week. So last week I sent him an email, and I'm like, hey, could you update the list? And he goes, sure. And he goes, what font is that? I'm not familiar with the font. I go, Josh, this is the Century font. It was created in Indiana at the Century Building in downtown Indianapolis.
Wow.
Did you know that?
No, I just thought it was Klopp font.
Well, I tend to use it because it's the Hoosier font.
I had no idea.
Apparently lots of people don't.
We have our own font.
We do.
Yeah.
So use it liberally now.
Yeah.
So, all right. Thank you, Stockyards Bank and Trust.
Thank you.
Now, on with the show. So, Nate Spangle, you have, exploded on the podcast scene, and I love you because, A, you are infinitely positive, and B, it is all Indiana, and C, you can name almost every mascot of every high school in the state of Indiana.
Oh boy! Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, Indiana has been it's fun. I just learned something. The Century font. Wow.
Yes.
That's new. I'm always looking for those little new small nuggets to learn about the state of Indiana.
Well, you also have a newsletter.
I do.
Yeah, and it's you were going over Churubusco.
Churubusco,
yeah.
Turtletown, USA.
Yeah, that was the latest. I thought
that came out yesterday.
That was fun.
My wife's going to Churubusco today.
Really?
Yes.
For what?
Work. She deals with blind kids, and she's got one up in Churubusco.
Ah, there we go.
Yeah.
Home of that's Magic Wand is the very popular restaurant up there. It's been around for 30 or 40 years. So small towns in Indiana are kind of my thing.
I love it. So Tell us a little bit about yourself. In fact, I want to know a little bit about you because I don't know much about you other than you went to DePaul.
Okay, all right. So I grew up in Bourbon, Indiana, which is a small town up north between Plymouth and Warsaw on US 30 up there. Proud graduate of Triton High School. Shout out to the Trojans. Then from there, I went to DePaul, where I was on the football team. I did not play football, but I was on the team.
Were you in the program?
I was in the program.
That accounts.
Yeah.
There's probably a picture of you in a jersey.
There is, yes,
Okay.
online, right? And then by the time I got to be a junior, I kind of saw the writing on the wall. I was never going to actually play a meaningful snap. And so I started talking with Coach. It was Bill Lynch at the time. And I was like, Coach, let's be honest, I'm not going to play, but I want to still make an impact for the program. And I became the social media guy there. So I built a lot of like the promo videos, hype videos. I did interviews with players, and I posted there was a Monon Bell hype video that I made. And it got like 50,000 views on Twitter, and I was addicted. I was like, oh my gosh, making videos is so fun. I love it. And so I ended up working with like D3 TV, which is like our student-run television show there, and just like made videos and had fun. Then I graduated from DePaul. I joined.
When did you graduate?
2019.
Okay.
And then I was an Orr Fellow. I joined the Orr Fellowship 2019 to 2021. I worked at a company called Apex Benefits. Again, I was in like the health insurance space. So
You're a chamber member.
shout
out to Apex Benefits.
Yeah, John, dude, you might need to get them as a sponsor. There you go.
I'll keep it in the back of my mind.
Chamber members.
Apex.
Yeah, right.
We love Apex.
Exactly. So then I finished that up and I joined a tech startup called Powder Keg and worked there for 3 years. It was awesome. And during that time, I kind of got back into posting, and I was super fortunate. Powder Keg and Elevate Ventures had launched the Get In podcast, and I got to be a co-host on it. And it was, talk about a crazy cool experience. I was like 26 at the time, maybe, and they let me sit on there and be the young voice interviewing CEOs with Christopher Day and Matt Hunkler. And
Good old Toth.
Toph, yes, sir. It was awesome. And towards the end, oh my gosh, this would have been like a year ago, we were kind of getting to the point where the podcast was going in a little bit of a different direction. I really liked doing it, but it wasn't totally maybe in line with the business objectives of either crew there. So I ended up leaving my job at Powder Keg, acquiring the podcast, and taking Get In and creating the company Get Indiana, and posting a bunch of fun content all about the Hoosier State, and here we are today.
So, you've gotten some A-list Indiana celebrities as guests. Is it just asking and being diligent? How do you get that? Jim and I think we know a lot of people, but my gosh, it's nothing compared to
I've had some really, really good fortune with guests through introductions, and I've just been kind of always willing to help people out for the last 5 years. So now I'm kind of calling in some of those favors of like, hey, could you get so-and-so and so-and-so on the podcast? And I think a big piece of it is now that I built up a pretty decent following. People are like, oh, we want to get exposure for this, that, or the other thing. So whether it was having Allison Barber from The Fever on or Doug Bowles from The Speedway, there's value, and we can get like some of those clips to do pretty well. And I think our clip with Doug Bowles about can Indiana what do we have to do to get an F1 race back? I think it has like 300,000 or 400,000 views now on TikTok, and a couple 100,000 on Instagram. So people are always excited to go on and where people are going to see and hear the story.
When our audience, when can they see your podcast? How often? When do you do it?
We post Mondays and Wednesdays. Okay. So 2 episodes a week, and then every now and again I'll put out like a solo one on Friday. Where the most recent one I was at the IDDC, so their media marketplace, and I had conversations with visitor and travel bureaus from all across the state, and I just shared the 3 things that I learned that I thought was really, really interesting. Like Richmond, Indiana has the state's only mummies, and there's 2 of them in Richmond. I thought that was really fascinating.
Mummy capital of Indiana.
Yeah, the mummy capital of Indiana, right.
You did the Gannett Records. You did the walk there, right?
So I had a guest on who was talking about that as their hidden gem. So one thing that I do is, it's really hard to go everywhere and do all the things, but I always ask people what their recommendation is. And I asked the crew from Heartland Film Festival, and they had said that the Gannett Records out in Richmond, the Riverwalk there, and the whole, what was it, the Star Piano Company?
Yes.
There's like a bunch of cool music stuff there where like Hoagie Carmichael recorded.
So, no, that's cool. Me and my wife found that almost by accident one time. And that park is kind of hidden. It's a little hard to get to, but it is a neat setup, which I can't imagine that they actually put a recording studio next to a railroad track.
Yeah, right. That might not have been the best fit, but it's pretty cool, and they're doing a lot of cool stuff out there. There's a ton of history in the Richmond area. The Grand Central Station of the Underground Railroad is there, and you can go. Oh my! I had a fascinating conversation. I can't remember what her first name was, but she's like the marketing person within. What would that be, Wayne County?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so she was out there and gave me all the details of the history of Richmond, and I thought it was fascinating.
Now, how have you always wanted to be on camera, or did it just kind of morph into this?
Yeah, I guess I've kind of always liked talking to people and like creating videos and content and doing that kind of thing. I think it was just finding the right topic. I think a lot of times when it comes to everyone wants to have millions of followers and all these things and
Like us.
but then when you're making content, it's like you're making content for 1 million people when you only have 100 people that follow you. And so I kind of went the opposite approach and started very, very small. Like there's a niche subset of people that are interested in small towns. There's a niche subset of people that are interested in Indiana. And I just want to be the guy, the one who knows all the things there are to know about the state of Indiana and make content for those. I mean, couple million people.
So the mascots.
Yeah.
What is the most interesting mascot?
Oh, my
that you've
goodness.
I know
ever
the
come
answer to
across?
this.
Okay.
You
So
have an
wait,
opinion.
you have one?
The Shoals Jug Rocks.
The Jug Rocks is a really interesting. What about the Madison Grant Argyles?
Argyles are pretty cool.
Then there's also the North Du Bois Fighting Jeeps.
Yeah.
That came from the Popeye mascot
Yeah.
or the Popeye comic strip, the Jeeps or whatever. Yeah, that one's pretty interesting. There's a couple eels, like Eminence eels and Clay City eels. I
Well,
think
we
that
got
one's pretty
two
funny.
eel rivers in Indiana.
Yeah.
That's
I'm trying to think of other
the Frankfurt
interesting-
hot dogs
No,
would be
that
up there.
one's like the layup. Everyone
That's a layup, yeah.
they're really interesting and unique and one of one, but everyone knows that one. Like nobody knows the Jug Rocks of Shoals, or nobody knows. I'm trying to think of some other super unique ones.
Is the Tell City Apples?
No, Tell City is the Marksman.
Oh,
well,
that
Another
makes sense.
unique one.
There you
Which
go.
actually, that a whole subset is all the old schools that have consolidated and don't exist anymore.
Oh,
Going back, which I dug into Hancock County one time. I don't know why. Well, just because I'm from there. But yeah, there was the Pirates and the Buccaneers and
no way.
yeah.
From what towns?
So I think Fortville was the Pirates and Mount Comfort I think was the Mount Comfort or McCordsville was the Buccaneers.
And then they all got consolidated
Into Mount Vernon.
Mount Vernon.
Yeah.
I got you. Okay.
So-
that's really There's a whole nother rabbit hole to go down of all the ex-consolidated because so I'm from Triton.
Yeah.
So that was Bourbon, and there was Bourbon High School, the Bourbon Comets, the Etna Green Cubs, and the Tippecanoe. I don't remember what theirs was, but the three small.
He doesn't know one.
They're not a school anymore.
they
They're not
don't
a school
exist
anymore.
anymore.
Oh,
They're not a
okay,
school
we'll give you
anymore.
that.
They all got consolidated to Triton.
Well, it was in the 30s or 40s. I think the boys basketball tournament peaked at 750 schools that
No
participated. Yeah. And then with consolidation, it got down to 300, or now it's probably at 350.
Yeah, I was gonna say
But-
I think there was 400 and something schools in the state of India.
'cause
Before
a
I
ton of
did
charters.
mascots, I did counties and county seats, and so I tried to learn every county based on its county seat, and that was a fun challenge to go through. And there's only 92 of those, which was way easier than knowing all the mascots.
Yeah. Now, back in the old days, when your license plates would start with the number was your county designation, and it was alphabetical. Shoot, I remember it as a kid, me and my dad going through and trying to list all the counties in Indiana alphabetically, which you could have a prop knowing, okay, Marion County is 49, Madison County is 48, and so you could kind of fill in. But
And what was 3?
Bartholomew.
Right.
Ooh.
Yes,
Okay.
let's see, 2.
Wait, when did this change? Because I think that would be awesome.
Oh, yeah, I wish they'd bring it back.
Yeah.
Jim was probably in the legislature when they got rid of this. Shame on you. So now there's still the sticker on there that has the number,
Sure.
but it's not the same. So, but
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Was number one, would that have been Adams County?
Adams.
Adams and Allen, then Bartholomew?
yep.
There we go.
And then Boone was 4.
Yeah.
Wow. Can
Gosh.
we could that would be it. That would be a time. I don't know if we want to publicly try to go through it, but
No, we don't have that much time.
No, Blackford was.
yeah.
Okay. We are talking talking to Nate Spangle of the Get In podcast. He is fantastic, as you can tell.
Thank you. Wow, I'm honored.
You were watching the Merritt in the Morning podcast.
We hope you share this.
Yeah.
Yes,
absolutely.
thank you. He is Jim Merritt. I'm Brad Klopfenstein. Josh Gillespie is behind the camera running the show. We want to thank our sponsors, the Stockyards Bank and Trust Company, locations at 71st and Binford, downtown Indianapolis, Plainfield, Carmel.
This is always a test.
Yeah, I mixed up my order now, so now I've got to
And
actually
he
think
always
about
does
this.
it to himself.
Okay, there you
I
go.
do it to myself because I want to make it interesting to our viewers.
Yeah,
And plus,
absolutely.
I think it's probably a drinking game. If Brad messes this up, you got to take a shot. They're in Greenwood at County Line Road in Emerson, and coming soon to they call it Center Grove, but it's Stone's Crossing, effectively. It's down on 135. And then apparently they're about to break ground on Zionsville and Whitestown.
Wow,
Oh,
just
boy.
a really great. This
are.
bank came out of Louisville, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful bank.
All right, we'll allow it. We'll let it go. Even though they're not based here.
Paula took me to the Pacer game last week.
Hey,
Oh,
all right.
and they won.
They did. The last time they won, I think.
Need to get you back there.
Yeah, exactly. I should be in the Lexus loft every game. I also want to thank the Honey Baked Ham Company. Jim, 30 years of honey baked ham in central Indiana.
That is a lot of ham.
That is a lot of ham. I tell you, if hogs end up being like the all-powerful, the Calbs are screwed.
Yeah, so are we.
So, as we're coming into spring, you've got a lot of graduation parties. Easter is coming up.
Mother's Day.
Mother's
Who doesn't
Day.
want ham for Mother's Day?
Absolutely. So they can get you deli trays, salads, anything you need, all the sides. Stop by. They got locations at
Honey mustard.
Jim, you're only allowed to have one at a time.
One mention of honey mustard.
Yes, yes, Jim, the honey mustard guru. They're also a Greyhound Pass in Carmel, so stop in. Josh, what is the code? You get $10 off if you do something and something.
Yes, through March 31st, take $10 off any catering purchase of $100 or more with promo code 729447. That is promo code 729447.
I love that.
I do. I love the fact that Josh can do that.
We're
I
We're
wonder if
stepping into it.
Yes,
You guys are official now.
we are official.
Oh.
That's so yes, the voice of God back there. All right. So let's get on with Nate Spangle. This is it.
Yeah.
This is incredibly interesting. So the stuff you do people pay you for some of this content? When I say pay, I know that there's a guy named Satoli that's out of Southern Indiana who does bridges and historical stuff, and people will hire him to come and capture whatever the history of whatever little hamlet it is or whatever bridge it is, just so it's kind of saved for posterity. I didn't know if people would pay you, because you do a lot of traveling.
Yeah, some of it is like that, where I'd go work with someone like Discover Southern Indiana, which is like
Yeah.
the travel bureau from down there, or different counties or places like that. A lot of it is funded from companies and my partners, like similar to you guys in the Honey Baked Ham Company.
Yeah.
And was it Stockyards?
Stockyards Bank and Trust.
Bank and Trust, yeah, absolutely. So I'll work with organizations like locally. Like today is a Horizon League championship, right? So the semifinals are today, and the finals are tomorrow. We've been promoting those on the podcast for the last month or so. Going to WBIT finals, so like Indy Sports Corps and a bunch of different orgs kind of like fund me to do specific call outs for their stuff, as well as all of the general Indiana travel and all the general Indiana content. And some of it is paid and some of it's more just I'm interested and it's fun. And going and exploring small towns or high school mascots, it helps get more people involved and into the ecosystem that are either following on social media, listening to the full podcast, subscribing to the newsletter, or just on the website.
Where can they find you?
So getindiana.com. That's like the base, right? So it starts there. We have a newsletter. We have a podcast. We have social media at Nate Spangle on every sort of social media on YouTube. And then Get Indiana is the other social handle. So company versus individual. And yeah, we're always putting out. I mean, today I just talked about what our Indianapolis St. Patty's Day plans are. So we're going to be in Broad Ripple, teamed up with CCA for a bar crawl there, and doing different stuff like that. Yeah, it's super fun, guys.
So when you're left to your own devices, where do you go?
And what kind of devices?
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
See, Nate's the kind of guy I want to have some beers with. And
Yeah,
then really
exactly.
Get this thing going.
I mean, that is super. So I live in Broad Ripple.
Mm-hmm.
So like I probably stick around that area on the north side more often than not. Like my office is right by Broad Ripple Tavern, so that's like the usual spot, right? If we're gonna be suspects there, Nicole knows that we like Coors Light on draft, and that's where we hang out at.
Mm-hmm.
But when we're not there and we're exploring, I actually genuinely love going to small town dive bars. Like I think that there's just something special. So in my hometown of Bourbon, it's called Journey's End. And it's the one bar in town. You go there, there's pool tables, like the bartenders know your name, and all my friends are still regulars up there, and it's always a great time to go and hang out. I've been recently getting into more of, whether it's hiking or, the toboggan run at Pokagon State Park, or just trying to find these different things.
And you podcast from there.
I do not podcast from there, no, but that would be one to do. If to podcast from the toboggan run, but just to go and check it out and see. The one thing that I've been hammering home to people that I went last year for the first time that's incredible is French Lick. Like everyone has heard of it. They're like, oh yeah, we have French Lick here. It's cool, whatever. But like, have you actually gone?
Right.
Because like when I went for the first time last year, I was blown away. I thought it was so sick. Very, very cool. Tons of cool restaurants, the resort, the different pools and the hot tub and the golf and everything. It's awesome. I had a great time there.
If you explore downtown French Lick, which I'm not a big gambler, but me and my wife went down there last fall for a car show, but then we just wandered around the town. They've got a cool German restaurant that's downtown there.
Yeah.
They were having...
Larry Bird, the 33 Brick, is like
Yeah.
the bar dedicated to kind of like his history and everything. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, let's
cool
see.
stuff.
The American Legion had a band outside. Now, you mentioned dive bars. Jim, let's do it around the table. What was the last dive bar you were in?
Probably the Hop when I was in college in Bloomington.
You haven't been in a dive bar since
In
college?
40 years?
Yeah.
Surely, no, I took you into the Whistle Stop at 21st and Emerson once.
Yeah, okay.
In the last 20 years. So maybe that was the last time.
I just don't make dive bars.
Oh, you're missing out. Nate, what was your last dive bar?
So
Town dive bar.
So I just got back. I was out in Breckenridge for a ski trip, which I do sometimes with the state of Indiana. I know it's a shocker to people. But I was just out there, and it was WD Tavern in Breckenridge. So that was like 2 days ago. We were out there and hanging with some like snow, not beach bums, but whatever the equivalent of like the snow guys are. But in Indiana, the last dive bar that I have been in, dang. I'm trying to think about where I've been recently, and it's hard to do that without looking at your calendar.
Or a map.
Or a map, right? Maybe 10th Street Pub out on the east side.
Okay.
It was like,
dive-ish.
It's dive-ish a little bit there. We were meeting up.
What's the definition of a dive bar?
It's vague. But you know when you're in there.
Yeah, it's kind of like.
Oftentimes they still allow smoking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fair.
So Nick's in Bloomington is not a dive bar.
No.
Okay.
No, that's.
I was in
that's
there
like
the other night.
I love Nick's, but no, it's not quite divey enough.
Yeah.
Nate's still going through his head.
I know I'm thinking about it. Well, because I want to think about a good one that I've been to recently. Because I would say I was down in Batesville recently. But we didn't hit a dive bar this round. I'm trying to think of the other small towns I've been to. What about you? What's your most recent?
The last one I was in, I know this for a fact, the Bluebird Cafe in Valonia, Indiana.
Where is Valonia?
Jackson County. So it is southwest of Brownstown. Fort Valonia.
Boy.
So they have an old historic fort there, and they have Fort Valonia Days at some point.
Fort Valonia Days.
So I have not been to Fort Valonia Days.
You're going to have him as your guest.
Yeah.
On Get In.
You know a decent chunk about the state here.
No, I've always enjoyed traveling Indiana, but when COVID hit, my wife got stir crazy and wanted to shoot people like Jim who were telling her that she had to stay home. I'm like, listen, you don't have to stay home. They said we just can't be around other people. There's a lot of wide open spaces in Indiana. So
Absolutely.
Every weekend I would tell her, so we've got a big old Indiana map like you see in schools from like the 60s. And so I'd have her give me coordinates. I'm like, that's where we're going. So I would say, give me a through M. And let's see, give me a 1 through 26. And based on where that was, we would go there.
I want to explore that little quadrant. That's
explore
awesome.
that quadrant.
That's
That's
fabulous.
really, really unique.
I remember when you were doing that. What'd you call it? Travels with Brad?
Adventures with Brad.
It's a
I
great
think.
podcast.
Yes, it is. Yeah. No,
Adventures with Brad, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
it was Adventures
Yeah.
with Brad. It's got a Facebook page. I should probably know this.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I might have to borrow the coordinates piece of it because I have a map that has that, and
Yeah.
I've been exploring. But those different coordinates would be fun to go explore.
So yeah, you just go and you find whatever. I mean, in
A dive bar.
a dive bar, you find the Bluebird Cafe in Valonia, Indiana.
Valonia.
Yes.
Okay, what school corp would this be in? Valonia.
Oh my gosh. So Jackson County, Brownstown has its own school, so it's pretty far west of Seymour. So I'm guessing it would be in the Brownstown schools.
Valonia, Indiana.
You've actually got an app.
Oh, come on now. Ooh, it's kind of close to Medora, which is a
It
small.
is.
Oh.
Yeah.
Let's see.
The brick factory. Medora has the old brick factory. We've been to that.
I don't know the brick factory.
It's these giant brick igloos that are kind of out in the middle of nowhere, and you look at them and you're like, what the heck are those? You go explore it. It's been out of business for like 30 years, but they're there. They used to make bricks. And
Indiana is a special place.
it is a special place.
Full of special places.
It's looking like they feed you either into Brownstown or Medora. Wow.
Does Medora have a school?
They do. It's very, very small.
Okay.
It's holding on by a thread.
Okay. So it's one of those two.
Sorry if there are any Medora listeners
Yeah,
out
exactly.
there. I
But
support you guys.
We are big in Medora.
Yeah, we're huge listening there.
In fact, we could rename this podcast the Medora Minute.
Yeah, and
Medora.
if we don't know what their mascot is, do we?
Is it the Yellow Jackets? I think.
I didn't know they had a school.
Yeah, right.
Is it the Brownstown Brownies?
I don't know what Brownstown is either.
I think they're the Eagles, or that might be Brown County Eagles. Hold on, we'll get
See,
to the bottom
we're
of this.
going down a rabbit hole now.
We are. But that's what podcasts are all about.
Right, exactly. Come up with interesting
So
stuff.
what's been the most interesting piece of Indiana, whether it's history, like I just learned about the font, century
Right.
font. What's the most interesting thing that you guys have learned in regards to the state of Indiana recently?
Probably one of our favorite places to go right now is the Wabash Cannonball Bridge.
Oh,
Are you familiar with that?
I'm not.
So it used to be an old railroad bridge. It's about 8 miles south of Vincennes on the Wabash River. It is a toll bridge. So it costs you $2 to go across this bridge. There's only a toll booth on the Illinois side. But so they took just a railroad bridge and then they put wooden planks on it. So it is one lane, wooden plank bridge, and sometimes there's traffic coming the other direction.
So what do you do? What do you do in that sense?
Then you have the Mexican standoff in the middle, and somebody has to back up a quarter mile.
Oh gosh.
So
You know, one of my favorite podcasts that we've had is Grand Universe, which is up in Westfield.
Okay.
They're building quite a place for kids to learn about space.
Oh.
And it's right next to Grand Park.
everything up there is named Grand something.
Yeah, and
Grand Junction, Grand Park.
yeah, and it's just Westfield's growing so much, but the fellows that we had on were just fascinating, and they understand space, and this is going to be quite the future for kids to go there on field trips, and they're going to have a hotel, they're going to have an enormous microscope, and no, not microscope,
Telescope?
telescope,
Yes.
and it's Monday morning, telescope. But anyway, it's going to be something for Central Indiana to behold. And
I love it.
It's one of my favorite podcasts.
So, Jim, is this our first Monday show?
Yes.
We've been having a lot of firsts lately.
Yeah, we have.
had
There
our
we go.
First Saturday.
Saturday.
So I did figure it out. It is the Medora Hornets, not the
Oh.
Yellow Jacket, and the Brownstown Braves.
Ah,
there we go.
Okay. Go Jackson County.
There you go,
Yeah.
Jackson County. I love it. Okay, so Grand Universe,
Mm-hmm.
that is an interesting, a good one to learn recently. And then the Wabash covered.
The Wabash Cannonball Bridge. So it's
Wabash
like I say, it's south of Vincennes,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a little village on the Illinois side. There's nothing on the Indiana side, and it's out in the middle of nowhere. But I mean, usually we'll stop in the middle of the bridge because there's hardly any traffic, and just look at the river. And actually, it's one of those bridges. In the center, it's on a pedestal, so it used to turn to let boats go through.
Wow.
Which obviously it doesn't do that anymore. I couldn't tell you the last time that thing turned. But I will tell our viewers, if you want to go see it now, because my understanding is the state of Illinois is going to spend like $3 million rehabbing that bridge, and I'm sure it will not be as cool then as it is now.
Yeah. When you like renovate something and take away the history of it, it's
Yeah.
like pros and cons. Like maybe more than one car can fit across at a time.
And
but-
you know,
It'll still be one lane.
with the government of Illinois, who knows if it'll ever get done?
That's true. Yeah, well, if you wait long enough, the other side of it will then be in Indiana.
that's very true. That could
Save
happen.
the bridge.
So, where does your podcast go from here? What do you want to do with this? I mean, and tell us about your studio. Just
Yeah. Oh well, my goal is to be the most recognized media personality in the state of Indiana.
You're getting close already.
So take out Pat McAfee, right? That's a little bit.
his place is just around the corner.
I know,
here.
it's not
We've
too
been
far
trying
away.
to get him, and
Yeah, I mean they're rocking and rolling and they're crushing it.
Yeah.
I mean he has done such an amazing job and is a huge advocate for the city of Indianapolis and the state of Indiana. It's really cool to see these big, I don't know, Hollywood-esque productions
Yeah.
being created right here in Indiana. I think that's super fascinating.
It's quite an investment, no question about it.
Oh my gosh, yeah, and it's awesome. It's like when people come from out of town, Kenny Chesney's playing a concert here, and he's stopping by the Pat McAfee show. That's so cool. Like the work that takes, and to be dedicated and to lay roots down in Indiana. I think that's awesome. But the goal would be, 2-3 years from now, when we draft the next Caitlin Clark, the Fever are coming to Nate and saying, hey, if you want Indiana to love you, Caitlin, you got to go on Nate's show and talk about not as much basketball or anything like that, but growing up in Iowa and the similarities and differences between Iowa and Indiana and what you're excited about and what's been the coolest thing since you moved here. So, yeah, just continuing to grow and represent the state of Indiana and, tell these stories. I mean, the one thing about Indiana, there are amazing, amazing stories, but Hoosiers are really humble. And unlike maybe some of the bigger markets like in New York or LA or San Francisco, they're not as comfortable going on in front of a camera and saying, I'm so great, I did this, I raised this much money and sold my company for this, and we did all these. Like, it's just not something that Hoosiers are super comfortable doing. But when I ask them the question and say, okay, wait, so you raised $10 million and then you got your company up to $1 billion in revenue or whatever, and I get to hype them up a little bit, it becomes way more comfortable, and we can tell these stories that are really, really awesome and that need to be told, but just aren't being told in the same way as some of the bigger markets across the country.
I would agree with that. Yes.
So it's kind of like the
we're
unofficial.
very humble.
Yeah, so I get to
place.
be kind of like the Hoosier hype man a little bit there,
Yeah, well,
and
that's
do that.
wonderful because we need that. No question about it.
We do need it.
People talking about Indiana.
So the studio you've got a tall table kind of like this with a map of Indiana behind you.
I have several different sets within
Okay.
our studio, right? So I have like I always say, the first question is like, wait, so this is your full-time job? So yes, this is my full-time job. So what I do is I run the media company, Get Indiana. So we have that full high-top table with the map on the back where we do a lot of the geographical content, and it's like a set almost. And then I have a full podcast studio that's seated with mics up to 4. We have some Get Indiana logo, branding on the back of it, where we sit down and we'll talk for 60, 90 minutes about whatever the topic is. Like today, I released the episode with the Horizon League commissioner talking about how
She's
cool
full
it
of
was.
personality. I heard her on the radio on the way
She's
over
amazing.
here.
Julie is incredible. She was I believe an attorney in like the sports law sector, then came over and started working. Well, she worked with the NCAA for many, many years, and then went and started a sports law practice, and then now is the commissioner of the Horizon League, as well as the board chair for Indiana Sports Court. So she's just a wealth of knowledge when it came to all things. I mean, we talked
Julie.
about NIL.
Last name.
Roe Lash, I
Okay.
believe. Yeah. She's super, super incredible. So that was fun, and it's always cool to have those different sets where we have like kind of a more fun set where we do the high school mascots, and then we also have the where we get serious and talk about. Oh my gosh, I've had some of the crazy coolest guests that have, whether it's business or sports or just people that have interesting stories around the state of Indiana that you need to know about.
Have you ever had a guest that was a complete turd?
No, and I think that comes down to the ability of the host to find something. And you have to do your due diligence on the front end. So go whether listen to other podcasts or just talk to the person, have a conversation up front. And then 2, it's come prepared. So some people maybe aren't as comfortable getting on camera and just riffing. They need a little bit more guidance. And so you have to be able to like ask the questions that build trust and comfortability and get them to a point where they're willing to share more than just like, oh, tell me about, your story. And they would be like, oh my gosh, that's so broad. It's hard for them to get narrow on how to tell that story in an interesting manner.
Yeah.
So I think it's with the host. So if you had a bad guest, it's because you guys, maybe you didn't do your research, guys.
Well, Jim knows who. If we were to rank him in order, Jim and I are.
And they're like, Nate,
we know
worst
who was
guest-
number 49.
Worst guest we've ever had. Guest 49, Nate Spangle.
No.
Uh-uh.
So in any case,
It probably was the host that.
actually, it's funny. The episode that we've had that is, I think, still received more views than any other was one that wasn't even supposed to be an episode. we recorded up at the Honey Baked Ham at 96 in Michigan.
It was his mom.
My mom stopped by, and Jim's like, and when we were done with our actual guest, Jim's like, let's bring your mom on. And she was a little bit reluctant.
Yeah.
And we did 10 minutes
Yeah.
of just Brad's mom talk.
Yeah.
And she told stories that I hadn't even heard, and Jim got it out of her. And we put that out there, and next thing you know, that one took off.
Yeah, it was fun.
Isn't it funny?
It is.
It's like I could spend hours and hours and hours on a video or hours and hours and hours on a podcast. This huge thing, put it out there. Everyone's like, cool, whatever. And then it's like the one you make in 10 minutes or whatever, and it's like
Yeah.
it goes crazy and
Oh,
gets
it was
millions of
special.
views or
It was a
whatever.
special
It's nuts.
podcast.
Yeah, well, and I think there's a lot of things like that where it's unintentional. Heck, since Gene Hackman passed away, I've heard that story a bunch about when what's his name slapped his knee and it made the movie. But you know what I'm talking? So Hackman was talking to Dennis Hopper.
Okay, coach
And it
was talking to assistant coach.
Yes, and so they were in the background. So it was guys playing ball and then practicing or something, and those two are talking just in the background, and it's in there where you see Hopper slap his knee and start laughing, and it's come out recently that apparently Gene Hackman told Hopper at that instant, he goes, I hope you've invested your money well because neither one of us are ever going to act again after this film.
Some of the oddest things, right?
Yeah. So that ended up being a key point in that movie, and it was way unintentional. So, I know it's taken off. I don't know where I was going with that story.
Not only
That's-
that, but
okay.
That's the beauty of podcasting, right? So you don't always have to have the destination in mind. You just go figure it out on the way.
Right, exactly. I mean, on this is lightly edited, if edited at all.
Yeah,
so
we have a good time too.
We do
This
have
is
a good
more
time.
for our own entertainment.
Well, I almost think that you can. Sometimes those spontaneous moments that might otherwise get edited out are some of your best moments.
Yeah.
And everybody is interesting in their own right. Sometimes you have to pull a little harder to get it out of them.
Yeah, true.
And it doesn't matter how big or how small a community is. Everybody has a cool story to tell. Whether it be the history of the founding,
You just
or
got to bring it out.
or the fact that the name changed in 1875.
And
or-
it's the way in which it's told, right?
Right.
And a lot of times, this is no offense to travel tourism or bureaus or anything like that, but like it's a lot of these stories are told in pamphlets or told on plaques at cities, and not everyone's always willing to go around and travel all the time, but they want to learn more things. And so taking the approach of telling those stories in a really if you've seen any of my videos, it's like I'm like screaming at the camera for 90 seconds straight about how great this thing is, and it draws people in and tells it in an exciting way, and it's not really about me.
It's like that comedian Nate Bagatsky,
Bagazi.
Bagazi, and he tells a joke that ordinarily, if I told or you told it, it wouldn't be funny, but it's his delivery, and he's I've just really discovered him recently, and he talks about the interludes with his wife and things like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, we really enjoy podcasts.
Yeah, and so much of it, it's that delivery, right? Where if you come in and talk about whatever it is in an exciting manner, or you're curious about something, then people will be curious about it. So the more I'm curious about small towns, at first when I started, it took a little bit to find the rhythm and build it up, but now people love it. Some of the small town videos I get, let's think, I just posted about Gas City, which is a population of 6,000 people.
Yeah.
And it got 80 or 90,000 views in a weekend. And it's that's 10 times, over 10 times the amount of people that live in Gas City are watching 90 seconds about Gas City, how they're trying to save the Speedway up there. That's the big initiative happening right now is save Gas City Speedway.
Well, just the story about how Gas City basically was a gas boom town.
Yes,
And
it used to be called Harrisburg. So it was called Harrisburg, Indiana, and then in the late 1890s, they discovered gas, natural gas. And so then a bunch of people fled there. It was America's original boomtown. And then, they fizzle out the natural gas supply in just a few years, but remained with the name Gas City, and it still lives on to today.
Talking about, this is the font episode of Merritt in the Morning. On their water tower, the only time I've ever seen a town's name use the Comic Sans font.
Yes, you know your typography very well.
I do. I know fonts, and apparently I know where most towns are in Indiana. So I'm proud to say I've been in all 92. And
really?
Yeah.
Okay, which was the most surprising one? What one?
Most memorable.
Most memorable or exceeded expectations. That's what I was looking for.
Let's see. I mean, all of them are cool in their own regard. Like, Posey County is hard to get to because it's not really on an interstate. It's west of Evansville, and it's the southernmost county. I still have this dream. I want to open up a resort way down there on the Ohio River and call it Deep South Indiana. And
Deep South Indiana.
Deep South Indiana. Don't steal my idea. But it's cool. I mean, it is just rural, but the river is neat to see. I mean, all the river towns I think are really cool. Obviously, some communities are harder to get to than others. Trying to think.
I'm a big fan
of
Madison.
You like
Madison
County?
Madison, Indiana.
Okay. So Jefferson County. I like Jasper.
Jasper is sweet.
Just as a destination.
Love Jasper. Super, super cool. They were so hospitable when we were down there. We went to the Schnitzelbank.
I know Alan Hanselman well, so he's a good friend. Yep.
That is where they have the greatest souvenir, trinket, whatever, at the Schnitzelbank. So the giant map, not the one that I have behind me on most of my videos, but I have a second one that's all IU themed. And it was at the Schnitzelbank for $13. And it's like a 5-foot by 4-foot map. It is huge. And I was like, they had them back there. There was some dust on them. I was like, are these still for sale? And they're like, yeah. And they're $13. I was like, this map is easily worth $200. It's crazy cool. So there we go. That's a little hidden gem for people.
Okay, go to the Schnitzelbank. In fact, I just planted turnips yesterday because of the Schnitzelbank. This is because turnip kraut is one of the items that they have. So me and my wife were down there. Alan invited us down because Ferdinand was having their Chris Kindle market that weekend, and Alan's like, come down, I'll get you a cheap room at the Hampton. We'll drink beer Saturday night. And he goes, and then Sunday we're making our turnip kraut for the year. And I'm like, really, how do you do this? So I'm going to tell you guys the story just because I think it's a neat story. So turnip kraut is an old German recipe, and basically it's shredded turnips, some sugar, some salt, some pepper, a little bit of vinegar. You mix it all up, and then it turns into kraut. So apparently back in Alan's dad's day, they would buy turnips in the fall. They would have turnip kraut through about January, and then the turnips would rot. So that they couldn't do it. Well, then Alan was still doing that on the cycle of we'd have turnip kraut for 6 months, and then we wouldn't have it for 6 months. And he said he was at some food show. Some guy's like, if you just shred it and put it in vinegar and freeze it, it'll last forever. And I was like, I had no idea. So then they went year-round on the turnip kraut. Well, then they were having trouble getting turnips because their food suppliers would only carry a bag or two, and so he was buying all the turnips in the Midwest, basically, and not getting enough. And finally, somebody who works for him says, those two guys that live up on the hill, they have this contest every year to see who can grow the biggest turnips. They each have an acre, and most of those turnips just get left to rot. And so Alan's like, no kidding. So he goes up there and makes a deal with these guys. So now, on the first Sunday in November, they will harvest all these giant turnips, and there's 25 people. It's almost like a barn raising, and they've got just a team of people. You've got people that'll harvest it, then you got others that'll wash them, another group that'll peel them, another group that'll shred them, somebody else that's turning it into kraut, and then they put them in these 5-gallon buckets, and they had 75 5-gallon buckets come out of that.
Holy!
Which 3.5 tons.
The more you know.
Exactly. So, and because of that, I'm like, well, and I learned, so turnips are a cold weather crop. So you can plant it, right now, it'll be ready and done by mid-May before you want to plant everything else. So here you go. I don't know how we turned into turnip talk. Okay, another sideline, Jim. Anytime you want to have a turnip talk, we'll have a new podcast.
Maybe we ought to have it where you're growing them.
We could. It's not a very big plot.
Sheila could film it for us.
She could. Yeah. My wife, she likes to be behind the camera and not in front of it so much. So, all right. So, Nate, what are you working on next?
Oh man, that is such a good question.
But where do you wanna go next?
The Indy 500 is right around the corner.
Yes.
And so that was really my first, just like the first campaign I did that really blew up.
Mm-hmm.
So last year we had the idea to do the Indy 500 really, really big. And so we said we want to be the first truck in the infield at the Indy 500. So we bought a truck off Facebook Marketplace, and I documented the whole process. Bought a truck on Facebook Marketplace, flipped it, got it fixed up, sold sponsorship, and hosted an all Indiana tailgate. So there was no Bud Light, no Coors Light, no national brand meat, anything. We didn't go to Costco. We bought everything from a company that has ties to Indiana, right? So Sun King, Upland, 4-Day Ray, Half Liter Barbecue. It was on all locally sourced meat. I mean, it was incredible. And during the process, I think I gained 10 or 15,000 followers on Instagram. We got almost 1 million views on all of our different videos. And so I still have this 1986 Dodge pickup truck that we flipped and is like our tailgating machine now. And so I'm still figuring out how exactly we're going to make it bigger than last year. But everyone could come. It was all funded by sponsors. So we had 400 people come through our tailgate at the Indy 500 and hang out and, drink a beer.
You keep that theme, then suddenly you can turn to Red Gold or Marion K Seasonings from Brownstown or
Wait, what was that one?
Marion K Seasonings. They're a spice company.
Marion K Seasonings.
They're out of Brownstown, Indiana. But yeah, heck, we probably have a couple hundred companies that are nationwide or at least big regional brands that are located here that a lot of people don't think about.
No, absolutely.
What's that? Roseacre? Yeah.
There we go. I need you
do
guys.
They have any chickens left right now? Yeah, that's a touchy subject right now.
Yeah,
we're in a positive.
Yeah. So we're getting ready for that and figuring out what we're going to do there and how we're going to make it bigger than. I got there at 10:30 p.m. the night before on Saturday and just waited in line. It was an incredible experience, but it's also one that
if you get media credentials, they'll let you in like an hour or two early.
Maybe I should probably do that.
We were just talking about that right before
Sounds
the
like
show
he's got
started.
connections.
Yeah, people.
I might know a few people
It's
now.
funny. I've got Doug Bull's cell phone number. He did not respond to my text. I asked him if he wanted to be interviewed.
So Doug did make the agreement that if I go out there and do it again, that he'll come out and serve coffee and donuts to the first 100 people in line with me.
Oh, that's nice.
And
that's
so
cool.
if you get there early,
and his portfolio is growing as we speak. With the league or the
that whole series
everything.
yeah, he's just like. I think I saw the shop right now is putting out a shirt that says Doug Bowles for president or Doug Bowles for governor. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just like
or Doug Bowles is my president.
Doug Bowles is my president.
Yep.
Yes, those shirts are sweet.
Do you have any affiliation with them? Because they seem to be right up your alley. The
The
shop.
shop? No,
Yes.
I actually don't. But people have said between the United State of Indiana, the shop, and then Home Field Apparel, they're all kind of like some of the coolest apparel companies here in the state of Indiana.
So, all right. Nate Spangle has been our guest. We have gone way long on this show. But
It's all right. It's enjoyable.
It is
think our audience
enjoyable.
liked it.
So, Nate, thank you very much for coming out to Lawrence.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me. This was awesome. It's cool to see what you guys were doing. And don't forget about the Honey Baked Ham Co. and First Bank.
Stockyards Bank and Trust.
Stockyards Bank and Trust.
Look at that.
Can you name all the locations?
Yes. 71st and Binford, Carmel, downtown Indianapolis, Plainfield, Greenwood, which is at County Line, and Emerson. Coming soon to Center Grove.
Zionsville.
Zionsville's coming. Whitestown's coming.
Wow.
Did I say Plainfield?
I think you did say Plainfield.
Okay, so so got all those locations. Honey Baked Ham Company, they got $10 off any catering deal. If you say whatever code it was that Josh said earlier, you'll get $10 off.
That would be promo code 729-447. Promo code 729-447.
I'm guessing if you went into one of their locations and said, hey, I was watching this podcast and they said something about $10 off,
the
they'll know
code.
what you're talking about. They'll just give you the code.
And so wrapping it up, though, I do want to, the place, it was the Wabash Cannonball Bridge.
Yes.
Down south of Vincennes.
South of Vincennes.
$2. That's going to send
$2
you
to get
one way.
Actually, so if you start on the Indiana side, there are places to turn around before you get to the toll booth, so you don't technically have to pay it. Now, I did just because it's $2 and keeps the bridge from falling in the river.
Okay. So that was the one place. And then where were you at in the what was the dive bar down in
Bluebird Cafe in Valonia.
in Valonia? Yeah, Fort Valonia.
Fort Valonia is
Wow.
there. So it is south of Route 50 by about 2 or 3 miles and probably 5 miles outside of Brownstown.
Jim, what about you? Is there a place that I need to go check out, like a good recommendation that's going to
Well, there's a bakery in Salem, Indiana, that makes, the little donut holes.
yeah.
Fabulous. I don't remember the name of the bakery. It's probably the only bakery left in Salem. Wonderful, wonderful donuts.
Okay, the bakery
On
in
the
Salem.
square.
I was just down in Salem.
I think
got
it's
to,
H&N or something like that.
Okay, I got to play around at the Salem Speedway for a day. They wouldn't let me drive a car though, but we took mini crotch rackets, like those little tiny bikes that go like 30, 40 miles an hour, and we raced them around the Speedway and did a whole thing there and learned about the history there. Those banks at Salem are incredibly
That's
steep.
quite a speedway.
It is nuts.
Now we got Jimmy Kite, former IndyCar great, coming on as a future guest sometime closer to the race. I feel like we should take Jimmy out to Newcastle to the go-kart track out there and just have him as a ringer.
Yeah, right. Get them in the go-kart.
Sounds like
race
we
there.
need to go to Gas City, too.
We need to go.
You need to save Gas City Speedway.
You could do a whole year's worth of episodes just on Indiana short tracks.
Oh, of course,
for auto
yeah.
racing.
Oh, yeah.
So,
One
all
of my
right.
favorite is Warsaw. They've got a track
track?
up. They've got a dirt track up there.
Really? Now, I like the ones where they have the figure eights.
Was it Warsaw or Plymouth? The Plymouth Speedway.
Well, I
might
went. Maybe Warsaw's closed, but
I don't think Warsaw has one anymore, unfortunately.
I had mud coming at me.
Oh,
Yeah.
They might do a little race during the fair that week, but I think they closed that one. And but I know Plymouth. But Plymouth actually might have, like a lot of these small community racetracks aren't able to keep the lights on anymore. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, it is. Which, it's a unique thing. I mean, it's the summer version of Indiana high school basketball.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah. All right. I know Josh has got to go. So thank you all for watching. Nate Spangle has been our guest from Get In. Jim, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next episode will be number 50. We will make it grand.
Yes,
we'll have to
hopefully
wear
so.
tuxedos or something. So, thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time.